was loud. Sorry. Scared me. Welcome, and thank you for showing up. Sometimes when you throw an event like this, you never know if people will come, and thank you for being here. And you'll get rewarded with refreshments after. So this is the first in a series that we are calling, and I love the fact that it's been renamed by our planning group, Grand Challenges and Opportunities. We borrowed the concept of a grand challenge from medicine. For those of you who are not familiar, in the field of medicine, many hospitals, particularly teaching hospitals, regularly hold what are called grand challenges, where they invite everyone on the staff to hear a speaker or a group of speakers address a grand challenge in the field. And the idea is to provide everyone with information that they need so they can be better informed about a really important issue. As many of you know, education is full of grand challenges. Right? And we tend to be preoccupied primarily with the academic ones, increasing graduation rates, making sure kids read and understand math, all very, very important. But in recent years, we've started to realize there's more to education. That kids who are depressed or anxious, or teachers who are stressed out and burnt out don't do so well. And that you can't ignore well-being and wellness as part of the educational journey. And although there's now a backlash against what we call social and emotional learning, for what reason I can't quite fully understand, there is a backlash in some parts of the country who think we should only be focused on academics. We are going to focus on social-emotional learning as well today. And so I want to first of all thank the committee that has pulled all this together, Professor Zoe Corwin, Corey Buckner, and Eric Canny. Is Eric here? He's online. Hi, Eric. And thank you, because they have put a lot of time and effort into planning, conceiving, and pulling together this group of experts that you're going to hear from today. And Kanae. We couldn't do anything without Kanae and her team, Australia. They helped to make it possible for this to be a hybrid event. Yeah. So there are twice as many people watching online as there are with us today. But they don't get any snacks, no virtual snacks. So we are really glad you're here. I am Pedro Noguera, the Dean of the Rossier School. I will serve as moderator. The panelists, as you can see, are, Tiffany Bong, who is at the School of Dance. Okay. Yeah. Education. Rafael Angulo, a teaching professor at the School of Social Work. Shanta Smith, who is on our faculty here at Rossier, who is also a former principal, but right now supervises many of our teachers. And Xiomara Mateo-Gaxiola, who is a adjunct professor and director of community engagement at USC Rossier. All experienced educators with different insights to share about the theme for today. So I'm going to invite, who's first?
Tiffany.
You're first, okay.
I'm first.
So each speaker is going to speak for about 5 minutes, share some of their core ideas, and then we're going to follow up with some questions. First from me, and then we're going to open it up to the audience. So,
okay. Thank you,
please,
Pedro.
Tiffany.
Thank you so much.
We might have some bio slides up first, so let's see. Nope.
Oh, it didn't. We're gonna go straight in. All right. Hello, I'm Tiffany Bong. I am so honored to be here today and to share space with you. The moment I came in here, I'm like, oh, I'm with my people. It's like I see the smiles, the warm-heartedness, the conviction, the commitment. So I'm truly honored to be here today. And I am a hip-hop street dancer. I want to start off with a little bit of a testimony that connects to our theme of today. I was in the 6th grade when I experienced my first ever hip-hop experience. I come from a very traditional, I went to an Irish Catholic school. My parents were immigrants. I had a very traditional upbringing where expression was not well, comfortable, yeah, and welcome. I think in many ways feared. And so I was going to school one day, and I was sitting in the second to last row, and I don't remember anything about the assembly except the last 10 minutes I heard and saw hip hop for the first time. And I tell you, it was like a rocket hit from the stage to that second to last row went, and life went from black and white to color like this. And it was that weekend that my dad had a store in San Francisco, Chinatown, and they were selling these, bootleg tapes. And so I went across the street and found my first hip hop music, put it in, and again, life has this has brought me all the way to today. Very shortly after, I formed my first dance company at 16 years old. I never went to a single dance class. I was a closet dancer. I turned on the music and I came to life. That was it. I found my sense of community, identity. I built my first mission statement, costume designs, cutting music, choreography. All of that happened at 16 years old. And so when moments like this happen, I remember that person and I remember why I do what I do. So I have a company called Universal Hip Hop. When I say hip, you say hop. Hip, hip. Yes. All right. So I gotta activate the room. I'm a dancer. I can't. I'll start busting out. No. All right. So we bring programs into K through 12 schools and communities. Here's a couple of things that we do. We provide in-school and after-school dance residencies. These residencies usually lead to some type of community culmination where we bring family and parents and the classroom teachers in. We also bring school assemblies and where we introduce the culture of hip hop, the lineage of street dance, and also dance as a vehicle of storytelling. And we also provide professional development to classroom teachers, really focusing on social-emotional learning through the culture of hip-hop and dance traditions. And we also recently started activating what we call family nights because we have a new focus, you can see up there, is to cultivate, this is the mission of my company, is to cultivate community. This is the biggest one now I'm feeling is intergenerational wellness, being that wellness is not individual. We need to all be well, right? We're all connected. So intergenerational wellness and wonder, I'm all about wonder, yes, through transformative soul-centered dance performance education and programming. So the family nights is an opportunity for us to all come together and remember we're humans and how we can connect as humans through music and dance. In terms of pedagogical, I am a pedagogic geek, and I don't know how I'm an artist as well as a pedagogist, but I love it. I see the world through pedagogy, yes. So I always translating people's, I always say your mission statement or your soul statement, and I see it in the curriculum. So that's just how I work. But culturally responsive curricula, so something we do in my company is all of our teaching artists, so we are actually an arts partner an arts provider to districts all throughout LA County. And our teaching artists go through a series of trainings where they're really learning about social emotional learning, how to design lessons that are standards-based. And one of the things I really love bringing to life is, and when we work with school partners, we really ask questions. We take the time to ask questions. Who are you, right? And we learn about the demographic we're working with, and we really pair teaching artists that can really connect authentically to the communities that we're going into. For example, if we have certain artists that have different learning abilities, and if we see that as a strength. And so if we're working in specific communities that are similar in identity and makeup, then that's what we do. We pair these artists with communities. Also, something that we always bring into our programs is something called the cipher. Can we all say the cipher? Dun, 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 right? Yeah. Can we all say cipher like this? Take your hand in the air, yeah, wave it like you just don't. Yeah, so the cipher is how we commune in hip hop, right? So it's when we gather and we create a circle. And what I love about the cipher is it really opens up this opportunity. Number one, you're valuable, because if you're not in the cipher, the circle's broken, right? You are a part of the completion of the circle. Also, when you come in, you're specific where you stand in life, right? Your entry point into this moment is a different perspective from the person next to you, and we're seeing something in 360. Does that make sense? So dancers come into the cypher and they dance, right? And they express their stories, their emotions, what's going on with them through this movement, and they're supported by a community. We learn in hip hop practice that the circle represents community, oneness, right? Safety, protection, no beginning, no end, right? That creation just keeps moving. And you come in, and can you imagine every day, if every time you're trying in life, everyone's like, yeah! Well, like, you know, like it's this verbal, physical, you know, kinetic confirmation of affirmation of who you are. We celebrate each other's journeys. There's no perfect or ending moment. We're all just this creative works in progress, right? So we definitely bring that into the classroom. We also work with the each one teach one philosophy, which is an African proverb. That what's so beautiful about the cipher is that the teachers are in the cipher, grandchildren are in the cipher, everyone's welcome in the cipher.
1 minute.
Oh man, well, I can go. So yeah, that's what we do. But I would love to say what's beautiful about the cipher is that it is the balancing of hierarchy, I would say, is that you start to see that everyone has something to contribute. I pretty much, hopefully, I demonstrated what I'm about to put in PowerPoint, but they did ask me to share a video of one of the programs, so I'm going to share a video. I also built a program at the USC Kauffman School of Dance called Kauffman Connections, and that is our community engagement program where we teach our dance majors about pedagogy, about social-emotional learning, and they go to the school across the street once a week as a part of their learning, and they learn how to get paid as an artist to do that, and they provide dance instructions to the community next door. So we're going to watch a little video. I know, but you can go back on it. It's okay. Sorry. My whole life changed when I was in the 6th grade and saw hip hop for the first time. Life went from black and white to color like this. Dance is truly transformational. It increases our empathy, our humanity, our sense of identity. And so my goal is to give that back into the community every single day. Are you ready for a show?
Kauffman Connections is the outreach program of the Gloria Kauffman School of Dance. It's really our way of reaching beyond the walls of our school into different communities.
A big part of Kauffman Connections is teaching hip-hop dance at K-12 schools in the neighboring community.
We create dances, teach them certain moves. They're able to feel comfortable, dance with one another, and collaborate.
It's a really awesome opportunity to get outside of the whole professional world of dance and really tap into the natural joy.
Got it? Awesome. 5, 6, 7, 8, we go.
My favorite part is honestly the kids. They're so funny.
They have so much energy. I love it.
My Kauffman teachers are really nice. They're like really inspiring.
Hey, y'all did amazing today.
Good job, Adrian.
They make dance really, really fun to learn.
It's amazing how dance impacts the life of a child. It's a path of opportunity for our students to flourish, to grow. They're more confident, and they can transfer that same attitude into any subject area.
At the end of each semester, we put on a big showcase.
It's a performance, but it's also a party.
The parents come to watch the children dance. It's incredible to see their faces just being so proud, so excited, and so supportive of these really brave and really courageous young dancers.
I'm better at dancing than everybody in my family. I teach them sometimes, and I think they feel really proud of me.
Hip hop is really about community. It is this way for us to understand ourselves and how we are really a human family. Kauffman Connections really allows us a chance to live that out every day. Thank you. I'm going to pass it on to Rafael. The clip is yours.
There are open seats up here if anyone wants to come in the front.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure. Definitely right next to Tiffany. I almost feel like I should do some sort of spin dance just to be able to keep it up, the energy. Anyways, my focus is going to be on participatory video. It is another sort of expressive arts that I've found to be remarkably moving for those that I work with. And so I want to introduce it to you and for you to be able to consider the likelihood of perhaps you including it in your own practice, either as a teacher, as an administrator, as a counselor, etc. And so let me just share, if I may, how sort of I got started. I am a filmmaker by training. I teach a documentary filmmaking course here at USC in the School of Social Work. We've been now celebrating for 20 years making films for social change. And I've always recognized the importance of the camera. And in today's day and age, the smartphone with high pixelation, it is now in many ways the camera for the proletariat as opposed to just the bourgeoisie, where it's expensive and hard to purchase. Anyways, what was clear for me was the power of images and storytelling. And for me, I was reflecting about its capacity to be able to assist students in particular of how they can sort of share their own stories, but for purposes that are larger than just them individually. And so I worked with an all-male Catholic school with the 12th graders. This was in 2023, 2024. And we gathered together as a group and began to explore the possibility of telling stories. But I had no idea what those stories would be. And one of the school counselors suggested, there's been issues here regarding self-harm, suicidal ideations, experiences that students have had in regards to friends who have committed suicide. And so we needed to make the group smaller. And so what I did was I gave each of them what's called the Toronto Alexithymia Scale, the TAS 20, which in essence sort of measures, do they identify, do they express emotions? Because some of them lack words to be able to express themselves. And so you see a lot of these sort of associated with depression, bipolar, autism in particular, and a wide variety of mental health issues. Alexithymia is not a diagnosis on the DSM-5 TR, but it is a psychological phenomenon. And so within this context of helping these youth begin to understand their own internal life, I selected 9 youth who all scored very high on alexithymia. And it was clear from the school counselor that this was, these 9 males were really remarkable in the sense of how hard they were trying, but they were having a really challenging time in terms of expressing themselves, not only to those close to them, but to those also in terms of their social world and to their family as well. The next thing that I want to sort of bring up is what we call PV, or participatory video. It's been used for a very long time, but on a macro scale, and it's basically looking at how can marginalized and disenfranchised groups begin to share stories, learning how to record, learning how to use a camera like a smartphone, and having the capacity of being able to work collaboratively together and to ultimately create a film or to create films in general. And then be able to take it to the larger, whether that be a mayor, whether that be somebody in politics, somebody in an administrative position. And so what we do is, in essence, teach them how to use camera, audio, lighting, if necessary, and for them to be able to gather around and be able to tell these stories. And so what I began to do was I used Diane Fosha, who's a psychodynamic psychotherapist, and began to look at what we call the sort of 7 core feelings of disgust, of shame, of excitement, of joy. And they had a very difficult time expressing this. And so it really sort of dawned upon me, what if we were to spend 1 week on just one emotion and then come back, they would record, they would meet with other people, their parents, friends. What does it mean to be disgusted? What does it mean to feel excited? And so each week we would share our stories on video and talk about these particular experiences that they were having and that they were learning from others. And so it was a 7-week program, if you will, in which they went out into the world, recorded themselves, recorded others, to be able to talk about all these. And so it was a very safe place. They explored emotions. And so what was, I think, really important is that they began to really have a connection that they didn't have before, even as 12th graders, where they have been together with each other for 4 years in a high school setting. And so one of sort of, or I should say several of the insights in terms of outcomes is that I did the TAS 20 again, and it was clear that they were able to be much more expressive, being able to identify feelings at a greater level. They very much had sort of enhanced social skills, not only with each other, but even their school counselor and their teachers talked about their capacity. They just feel and look a little different in terms of the way they're expressing themselves. And so what happened at the very end is that they wanted to share their work with all the other 12th graders as well. And it was really a beautiful night in which they had this capacity to go out in front of people, to share their feelings, to be able to talk about the experiences that they had. And in a short amount of time, 7 weeks, they really were able to, in a sense, combat alexithymia. Is it the only sort of intervention? Of course not. And so there still needs to be a lot of work done on this end. But there's a magic in images. There's a magic in storytelling. And to be able to share that is where the growth begins to happen. Thank you.
Oh.
Hello, my name is Shanta Smith, and a little bit about me, the dean mentioned it a little bit, is that I've always been an educator at heart. So I started my career in the field of education as an elementary school teacher in Washington, D.C. And that work was sort of pushed into the realm of education because I was a Children's Defense Fund Freedom School servant leader and really understood the purpose of being a teacher, right? To be a servant leader. After that, I went on to become a middle school teacher, right? I went from elementary school teaching to middle school teaching. Middle school math and writing teaching. An important part of that work was just really developing strong relationships with middle school students and seeing what happens when that occurs. After that, I went into became a math instructional coach working with teachers, the gems of education, right? And saw how when we come together with families, with staff, with administration, that we could do mighty things. Then someone convinced me to go into administration. And so I went and I became an assistant principal and really started to get involved as doing some of the work of discipline and realized that the people that shared with me the discipline problems were, it was very disproportionate as related to students of color. And so I said, there's something not right here. So we really adopted a lot of philosophies, bucket philosophy, bucket filling, and trying to see students in a different way. And that's where I got my training on becoming a school climate specialist. And so it was about working with the whole community to develop a better place for students. When I moved into the world of becoming a principal, I came into a school that had 5 principals in 5 years. And so I said, okay, what's happening here? But it was my community. It was, it was where I went through schools. And so I knew that the work would be challenging, but I knew that it would be rewarding. And so I had community chats. I had community chats before I got into the building as their school leader with families, with students, with central office individuals, with the councilmen, right? I wanted to know what their hopes and dreams were for the school that I was charged to lead. And as I began to have these conversations, social-emotional learning was in the forefront. It was in the forefront. And so a part of that work is to know and understand that one single intervention will not do it. So this is our approach. We had mindset work, SEL and academics, and explicit practice. Mindset work was with the students, the staff, and the families. We have families that were very adamant that they wanted their child to have certain things, which they deserved, but the way they went about expressing it wasn't always the best way. So we worked with them on their advocacy skills. We partnered with individuals that could support them so that when we needed something in the school, they knew how to advocate for it and they knew how to ask for it in a way that made sense for the whole school community. Then with our teachers, they were feeling overwhelmed. They felt like there were so many initiatives coming at them. They felt like all people cared about were test scores. And so we really had to do a lot of work there as well. My leadership team, we did the mindset book. We did a book talk related to that. And with the educators, we really focused in on mindsets in the classroom, right? That the students we had in front of us could really do anything. And once we were able to develop that within the school, things started to change. With our students, it was, regardless of your zip code, regardless of what they say about you, you can do mighty things. And so their demeanor and their attitude towards school started to change. But it took a whole school effort around mindsets. We had to realize the gems we had in front of us. Then we went to SEL and academics because people, like the dean mentioned, felt that academics, that's the only thing that's important. We did a reset, right? SEL wasn't another thing that people had to do. It wasn't an add-on. It was a must-do in our building, right? And so we took that approach. We did second step. We used that program. We had SEL time. We had morning meetings, K-8, every classroom. We had closing circles. We had explicit practice for social-emotional learning in our building for all of our students. And then explicit practice. So I hired a teacher, which you'll see in the next clip, or the third clip. And she's a former teacher from the Bronx. And she had a program called Mindful Yoga Breaks. And with her program, she really taught teachers and students how to implement mindful practices, not only in the classroom, but that they could take with them everywhere. So she came in, she did professional learning for educators, but she also taught classes for our students. Another piece that I think was critical to the integrative approach was that we hired, just like we hired literacy interventionists, math interventionists, we hired an SEL interventionist. And she came in and she worked with the students that we were most challenged by, right? They didn't have challenging behaviors. We were most challenged by them, right? And so in doing that work, she helped so many students that felt like they had targets on them to move forward. So I'm gonna go to the next slide. These are some of the reasons why we did the work that we did. The pushback, we wanted to push back against the school push out. We wanted it to be true images of equity, and we wanted to do something to disrupt that school to prison pipeline. So you see those smiling faces, that's what we wanted to occur each and every day in our building. Now I'm gonna play a quick video, and this is one of the schools that I led, and you'll see some of the one of the practices that shows the integrative approach.
Mindfulness exercises can help calm your thoughts and relieve stress, which is why one New Haven school is using it as a unique approach to improve learning. In the second grade class at Edgewood School in New Haven, these young students are getting a valuable lesson.
Prefrontal cortex, can you guys say that?
They're being taught mindfulness techniques to calm their minds and improve their learning.
We have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. And so teaching kids how to calm that monkey mind, it's all about being mindful and being present and being aware.
Once a week, Lanny Rosen Gallagher visits their classroom to teach what she calls mindful yoga breaks, which involve breathing techniques.
So we're going to inhale through our nose,
yoga poses, and games.
I'm teaching kids about their brain. And so they have this part of their brain, which we call the bulldog brain, which is our amygdala, and then the front part of our brain, which is the wise owl, and our prefrontal cortex. So if they know that these two parts of their brain are dealing with their emotions, they can now start being mindful of how their emotions are affecting how they feel and how they are affecting other people around them.
The goal is for students to use those tools on their own in order to calm their minds during stressful moments.
The teachers can actually teach if the kids are knowing that, oh, you know, this kid did something, there's a conflict happening, these big emotions are happening, but a child now can take a big deep breath and calm it before that reaction.
Principal Shanta Smith says since incorporating mindfulness into the curriculum last year, the school has experienced significant improvements.
Most importantly, it's impacted our suspension rates. They've gone down as a result of mindfulness practices in our classroom. Our students are able to express what's happening with them when they're feeling certain emotions, whether it's their wise owl brain they're using or their bulldog brain.
And she says a survey last year of Edgewood's parents show the lessons are sticking with the students.
The biggest piece of information that we received from parents that was very helpful to them was that they could see the change in their kids. They could see them actually implementing and practicing those components.
As they grow, this is a practice they'll take with them.
A valuable lesson for a lifetime of mindfulness. For CT Style, I'm Megan Yost.
Hi everybody, I'm Xiomara Mateo-Gaxiola.
Finally over.
And I'm happy to be with you today. I have a very similar journey to Shanta's, as starting as an elementary school teacher, as a middle school math coach, a middle school interventionist, and then moving here to Rossier and working as a professional development provider for Rossier. Then I went on to work as a senior director of a nonprofit that provided resources to schools in 3 different areas: in community schools implementation, in the development of resilient school environments, and also in the art and science of pedagogy. Fee-for-service coaches, which no one thought a school would pay for, but we were constantly in demand for hire of. And then I'm back here at Rossier as a director of community engagement and an adjunct professor. And I'm going to talk to you about developing those conditions in schools that allow beautiful programs like the ones that have been discussed, allow them to happen and allow them to flourish. Because it's really about the conditions. If we look at even the castle model, right, which is what you see here, this is the model for social emotional learning that Second Step is based on and other social emotional learning programs are based on. It's surrounded by concentric circles. And so how do we make those outer circles a reality? How do we implement the strategies that are necessary for school-wide culture practices and policies, for authentic partnerships, and for aligned learning opportunities? Now, the conditions that are necessary for teaching and learning really came to light for me when I read the work of Isaac Prelintensky. We were doing research for the Resilience in School Environments project, which was a partnership with Kaiser Permanente that served 20 schools nationally in the development of social emotional learning school-wide. So I had a team of about 9 coaches that I worked with that lived all across the country, Colorado, Mississippi, Georgia, here, Northern, Southern California. And we were doing tons of research. We were reading so much about this and trying to decipher the best strategies, the best process that we could provide to provide the most nurturing environment. The work of Isaac Prelintensky, in particular, his article on teacher stress. Teacher stress, what it is, why it's important, and how we can alleviate it, struck a chord with all of us. Because he talked about the responsibility of teacher stress in the personal and the intrapersonal, but also in the organizational, right? And what are the protective factors that the organization can provide for the teachers? And that's what those 3 outside circles are really about. So how do you go about doing that? What's the implementation of that look like? When we talk about school-wide practices and policies, an opportunity is to look at audits, right? Audit your policies and practices for social and emotional learning. Are they harmful? If they are, why are you still doing them? Do they nurture the social emotional learning curriculum that you're implementing? Do they respond to that curriculum? Are those practices also the practices provided to the adults in the building? And once you know that, once you've gone through that audit, then it gives you a place to disrupt, right? To set goals that are disruptive to the status quo. Once you have those goals, that's where you have the opportunity to seek partnerships. Partnerships that are aligned to the goals that are disruptive, that are part of the innovation that as a school you're really hoping to achieve. And the aligned learning opportunities, right, in the transformative learning experiences that you can offer to the adult learners on your campus that ultimately respond to the student learners. So implementation will always have challenges. That's just the truth. It's hard. And there are opportunities to think differently about implementation that can remove some of those barriers. So I offer you a few here. One, with school-wide policies and practices, once you're in the space of disruption and you have some strategies, we're all very clear on the need for knowledge, skills, and dispositions objectives. Everyone does that pretty well, right? Think about the transformative learning objectives. Do you have those in place too? Because those are messy. They're open-ended, they're unpredictable, and not everyone's ready for them. But if you don't plan for them, they're not available to anyone. So the planning has to be intentional, even if you don't get there, or even if one person actually gets to get through the experience of it. It's still important. It's the planning, it's the intentionality, it's the mindfulness of saying, I'm designing a curriculum, I'm designing learning experiences for adults, hoping, nurturing, cultivating their transformation so that we can transform the school together. Authentic partnerships. Once you know that you have these objectives, go out and invite people in, right? Rather than sitting back or kind of taking what you're given, invite people into your goals. Invite people into your strategies. Find resources that are aligned with what you're trying to achieve in your community, including funding, right? Invite funding in, funding that serves the social, cultural, and historical context that you're in. And the aligned learning opportunities. Distributed decision-making is something that we've all heard of, we've all tried to implement, also another messy experience, but highly productive, highly engaging, and achieves results. In addition to that, when you design these distributive teams of hopefully parents, of classified, certificate staff, community members, all people who are engaged in the thriving of your school and your community, invite them also to critically reflect on their own biases, on the biases of themselves as an individual and the biases of the collective. Social emotional learning can be a slippery slope into saviorism and paternalism. And left unaddressed will cause harm. It will cause harm either to the student, to the adults, or both. And so the critical reflection of where are we now, being honest about why are we doing this, with what intention are we doing this, are we being saviors, are we being paternalistic, how is that being communicated, in what ways, and then do something about it, right? So some of the areas of my work where this has shown up has been in the Resilience in School Environments project. The RISE Index is a free tool that's available online through Kaiser Permanente's website. Shout out to the LAP RISE coaches that created it. So that's an auditing tool that's available. There are more tools that are also available out there. Community schools standards. You don't have to be a designated community school to take advantage of the resources that community schools have for you. Based on your needs, based on where you're going, those tools are available to you. The Institute for Educational Leadership has the community school standards and also has tools for you that you can implement based on that need. And then here at Rossier. At Rossier, we have some programs, these are only some listed, but we have others as well, that have been designed specifically with these ideas in mind. The Mindfulness for Educators Certificate program is a multi-week program where the learner, you can take in your own mindfulness practices, your own personal mindfulness practices, and then also result in a plan for your community, bringing mindfulness practices to your community. The Diversity and Equity Certificate program, the DEI program, that one is an analysis of cultural historical context. So if you want to get deep into what is my social historical context and make a plan for that, that's an offering in the Breakthrough Leadership Institute, which also offers you a multi-day experience of analysis of your school with our dean and with also amazing Rossier faculty. Some of the protective factors for teacher stress are community well-being, the agency you get from it, and the transformative learning experiences. We're going to watch a video of Elijah, who just completed the Mindfulness for Educators Certificate program, and she's going to share with us the transformative experience that she had in that program.
So I did a lesson that will be sort of a one-off. I normally do a 5 to 6 week session, and then sometimes I do one-offs. And what I've learned or come to gather with doing them is sometimes there's different students that come. And so I kind of want to create my 5 sessions, the next 5 that I do, that can all be standalone. So in case someone doesn't come back or there's a new student, they don't feel lost, and I'm not building on the skills, because that's how I used to run my program. It was a building of the skills. So I'm going to change that. And so this will be one of them. And the topic is mental health and resilience. The question is, what brings you joy and what's in your control? So the activity is the boundary question and drawing of the hand activity. So I combined what I learned here and some things that I already did. So we will start off with the check-in question, like if you were the weather, what would you be? And just to gauge where we are. And then we'll go into a partnership where they're in pairs and they ask each other, what brings you joy? And then the person is instructed to just listen and then say, what else brings you joy? They're instructed to listen and say, what else brings you joy? And I chose this because this was one of the most impactful lessons that I did during the course of our session that is now over. But so that's why I chose that. And then to end the session, we'll do an activity. And
the activity is kind of long, so I can tell you about it later.
Let's give the panel a big hand. I've been a bad moderator because I did not hold you to your time because the content was so rich, and I knew everyone wanted to hear you. So, but now we don't have as much time for questions. So I'm going to ask one question, then I'm going to open it up to the group. I want to go back to what I said at the beginning, which is the pressure on schools and on educators is to raise achievement. And Shanta, you actually mentioned this. How do we make sure the space is created for joy of dance and for learning about emotions and all the other things that we've heard about today? And each of you doesn't have to answer, but how do we convince particularly the principals who are running it or the district leaders who are overseeing it that there's value in doing this kind of work? Go ahead.
I think it starts with what I've witnessed. It starts with giving them the experience first,
The administrators.
Yeah. So when we come
You get
in,
them dancing?
yeah, I do. A little special, yeah. When we come in and we bring professional development workshops, what I witness from my perspective is, teachers are usually coming in and they're exhausted, they're burnt out, and we come in and we bring them into movement experiences where they connect the breath with their body, where they're able to experience who they are in this beautiful human, gift we're given. And we talk about transformative learning within 45 minutes, 60 minutes. Teachers are reconnecting with their joy, their childhood, just being human again. And I think from there, it starts, as an arts partner, our teachers are our biggest advocates. When they see it in their students and they see it in themselves and they see it happening simultaneously, that becomes a big advocate, for at least arts in the schools, and creating that space.
Shanta, as a former principal, how would you
starting with the data, right? So my attendance data, my office referral data, my suspension data, looking at my academic data and breaking it out by race, by gender, by neighborhood, I did as well. And so that was convincing enough for individuals who needed to support me to do the work that I needed to do in the building, because I couldn't do it by myself. That's the one thing as a principal. If you think you can do it by yourself, you're wrong. You need everyone working with you, and sort of being just like brutally honest about what the data was and what it was saying to us and how we needed to do something innovative and transformative for our learning community to really make an impact that was lasting. So I could change academic trajectories if you gave me lots of tutoring support, if you gave me lots of interventionists, I could do that in a year. But if you give me social-emotional learning support and academic support, then it's sustaining. It sustains.
Thank you. Did you want to say something?
I think there's also another step. For example, in Shanta's case, you're an amazing administrator. Like, you're already on board, right? And there are a lot of administrators that are on board, but need more understanding. And that's what we found with the RISE experience, was that they approved the intervention and we were there working with their teams, but then they realized as administrators, wait, my team is learning all of this, but I don't know how to do it. So then their team had expectations, higher expectations for social emotional learning in their own staff meetings, in the way that they were all relating to each other as adults. So what we did when the administrators started coming to us, like, I'm feeling alienated from my staff now, was to create a retreat just for administrators, where they could learn the skills of social emotional learning as an administrator. What does that look like?
Go ahead.
For me, it was the capacity to be able to share with the principal and with administration the power of images, and to just basically ask the question, tell me about a movie that you just recently saw, and sort of pull from those experiences to be able to say, now when you turn back the camera back on yourselves, meaning the students, there is a greater likelihood of them being able to learn. And so one of the challenges I had, I talked about the 7 sort of core emotions. One of those 7 core emotions is sexual excitement. They said no to that. They said no, you're not going to do that. So I put in shame, but that was because it was within a. You're seeing the connection here, I see. So ultimately they were okay with shame, but it was really bringing forth the reality and the experiences that they had individually, of how powerful visual images can be to change minds and hearts.
All right. So we have some time for a few questions. Floor is open. Yes, Megan.
I'm curious if you can speak more about how the SEL curriculum actually, is there compelling data that it improves the academic side? Are we seeing, even anecdotally, are you seeing improvements on that? So that can help make the case for implementing these interventions.
Yeah. So if you log onto the CASEL website, CASEL, they have tons of research to support the importance of SEL in schools and improving academic outcomes, but also just improving skills that students need for a career in life, right? How to collaborate effectively, how to show empathy to others, right? How to regulate their emotions, how to navigate unfamiliar spaces. And so it's not just the academic outcomes with the power of SEL, it's just the life and human aspects that make it so rich and rewarding for our students. But CASEL is a wonderful resource. The Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence also has lots of research about the work that they do with adults, because the important piece about schools and SEL is that if we have individuals that do not have high emotional intelligence implementing social emotional learning, it is not as impactful, right? And so we have to be able to do that work, right? We have to be able to have those components as well, and there's research on that as well. So those are two really rich places to go to find information about just the tremendous impact of social emotional learning in schools.
I think the return on investment through the CASEL website for every dollar you spend on social emotional learning, you get it's $1 to $11 back in savings, right? All of the $11 being the resources that you bring in to manage all of the other disparities. So there's also a cost benefit to it.
So a hand here, and then.
I wanted to know if you could maybe share some ideas around parents and social emotional learning and how to provide opportunities for parents to engage in it and help to really kind of interrogate those biases around discipline and punishment.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'll start from a parent perspective. So when my children were young, my daughter brought home this homework, second step homework. And I said, she goes, Mom, we need to sit down and we need to do this interview together. And no, you're like really bright. Like you can do this on your own. It's homework for you. She's like, no, Mom, we have to do this together. And so that SEL homework added an element for me to be responsible as a parent, to be able to support what the school was doing to really...
Explain what second step is.
Right. So second step is a program. And it allows students to be engaged in a way that they are implementing and practicing social and emotional learning skills. And so the framework of second step it's so amazing. They have pictures, they have videos, they have lessons that the teachers teach, but then they have homework too. And some of that homework is collaborative with family members. So for me, as a mom, that was really powerful to have homework, to do social emotional learning homework with my child.
Can you give us an example?
Yeah, that one in particular, I think, and the reason why I didn't really want to do it was because it was about, like, how do you respond when you get angry? What do you do? Right? And so we had to really talk about, what was reality and what we should do, right? How do we, have self-awareness? How do we have, how do we have responsible decision making around that? And so that was really helpful for me to know that her teachers were doing that work, and that was before I had a school leadership role. So it was something that I really remember being really important to me as a parent.
I have two with parents. One is providing the opportunity for parents to be on your strategic planning or SPSA team, and sharing the data with them, sharing the disparities with them, helping them to understand what that looks like, and extend that into the strategies that you implement. So with the community schools model, The strategic planning is one component, but another component is inviting parents on instructional rounds and talking to parents about not just the academics, but the social emotional learning environment that the school is cultivating. So providing them with that professional development for them as parents, so they understand what they're walking into, what they're observing, the indicators that you as a school are looking for to nurture, and then taking them on those instructional rounds. And the stories that come from those experiences will be some of the most invaluable stories that you'll have. It is so profound how a parent perceives the learning environment of their child. They will notice things that you will never have noticed, and they'll have context for what that looks like when that child goes home, right? So what happens in that classroom, what they observe in that classroom, well, I know when my child comes home, this is what I experience as a result of that. That's where real change, real dialogue, real decision making can take place.
There was a hand right there next.
So my question is more about the district level. So we talk about, schools leaning in, administrators leaning in, but as we know, there's a lot of top-down decisions that happen at the district level. And Dr. Xiomara, you briefly mentioned about strategic planning, right, integrating that. But wanted to hear some of your challenges and opportunities, how it came to integrating these within a district. Crisis-driven, principals are top-down things, they're delegated. Just wanted to hear at the district level.
Yeah, in that case, having conversations beyond the schools. So who does the principal report to? In other words, have a conversation with that person. What is the goal here? What's the global goal for this region? If you're in a large district, if you're in a smaller district, what's the goal for the district? What is the LCAP? Your LCAP? What are the goals described in your LCAP? How is that connected to what you're asking schools to implement? And really be a partner in that conversation. If you're speaking from a resourcing perspective as a resource provider, asking the question, what do you need in terms of resources for this to be implemented at scale? A great opportunity is to develop a TK-12 network. So if you are an elementary school principal, do you know your middle school principal? Do you know your high school principal? Are you aligned? Do you understand what a parent's experience is like going through all of those grades? Is it a continuous experience? Ask the parent that and ask the principals that. Bring yourselves together to have a conversation about what it looks like at each level. What does SEL look like developmentally across the grades? And how are you all working together to make that feasible? So different kind of configurations, but I found the TK-12 network to be incredibly powerful. I worked with 2 different networks where they wrote a unifying letter. They developed resourcing nights at each of the schools so that kids could transition from one level to the other. They brought together parents to do kind of a focus group to understand, especially parents that had been in the school with multiple kids over time. And it was really powerful. At the elementary school, have the middle school, the 5th grade parents at the elementary school register for middle school at a parent night. Have the middle school principal there. So those types of opportunities are opportunities for social emotional learning. It's extremely dysregulating as the mom of a 6th grader to go from elementary school to middle school. And it eases the experience to know that those schools are talking to each other and they care.
Let me get Tiffany back in, because Tiffany, you focused on joy, which was, I think, an interesting take on social emotional learning, because it was about creating a space for the students and maybe even the teachers to experience joy. Can you speak some more about that? Because often I think there's a tendency to treat social emotional learning as a response to a problem as opposed to an experience that's really uplifting.
Yeah. Our approach is that, this mindset that joy is resilience, joy is to empower. Joy is what gets us through the day. Joy is accessible. It's not determined by the outside world. It's within all of us, and to create space for us to reach into that joy and to also support each other in that journey, and to see it physicalized through movement and dance. And something in terms of giving everyone in the room an opportunity to see transformation is, when it comes to street dance, we go into the histories of street dance and where they come from. And the communities, they come from particularly Black and brown communities, marginalized communities, and you have dance forms like Crump that come straight from LA that are really about transforming the most difficult things in life and turning it into art and seeing yourself as art, becoming every single day, and giving them this approach toward life. It's a lifestyle, and definitely remembering again that we can access this joy and how it can carry us forward. Yeah.
And then Rafael, you spoke about helping young men in particular become more self-aware about their emotions. I wonder if you could talk about that, because I think many of us, especially those of us who are men, know that that's uncomfortable for a lot of men to express a full range of emotions. And I just wondered, what does that work look like as you roll it out in schools with kids who are just coming into themselves as young men and their identity?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just sort of touch base sort of with the system. The Archdiocese of Los Angeles, which many of you know, is a very powerful system, especially within the high school setting. And parents are very curious and want to know, what are you doing with my kids? I'm paying a lot of money. I just want to make certain that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And so it took a while for me to be able to convince these parents of this particular program. And so, is it faith-based? Okay, I tried to sort of mold it in that direction.
Bring Jesus in there.
Bring Jesus, yeah, absolutely. But also, is this something that is going to assist my children, not only in terms of their faith, but we really didn't talk anything about faith, but yes, about feelings with these boys, 12th graders, who were struggling with symptomatology of depression and anxiety and various other things as well. And so I think it sometimes takes, not all the time, a male social worker to be able to also mentor and to also express my own things. This is what I'm feeling right now. So we would have a check-in at the beginning of each session and allow myself to be vulnerable, to be authentic. And so, as they got to really exploring these really fundamental physical feelings, fear, disgust, sadness, there's a somatic element to it, they began, I think, to really appreciate, where in the body do I feel this? And it's not necessarily a male thing that they necessarily pay attention to. And so they began to feel it more and more. And we saw them at the very end give each other hugs and being able to say, hey, let's get together this summer, let's do something, but in a deeper sort of way. So I think there was a lot of sort of wonderful responses by the kids on an emotional intelligence level.
Thanks. Other questions from the audience? Yes.
I actually have a question from online that
You'll
would
get the
go
next
right
one.
after yours. So, has anyone used character strong? What are your thoughts on it? I'm seeing positives and negatives on it. So the character strong.
You want to comment on that, Xiomara?
No, I haven't used that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Haven't used it?
Mm-mm.
All right.
Yeah, if
Character
it's
strong.
character counts, I've used character counts.
Character counts, that was
Yeah.
a popular one for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I was a teacher at a school that adopted character counts, and we did see a lot of good results from that. It's what I think was important for this school in particular. They were really struggling. I think we would have. Well, and we did. All of the adults really defined that school as a toxic environment for the adults when I started working there. And character counts helped to provide language, like Rafael was saying, language for character that we all wanted to see, that we all wanted to exemplify. It was something to gather around and create shared meaning around. That's an important SEL and mindfulness component, are the traditions and the shared meaning that you develop over time as a collective. It builds up your resilience, it builds up your interconnectedness. So programs like that are useful for that, especially when a group is so far away from being a connected environment.
Good hand here.
My name is Shri, and I'm a second year EDD student. So I'm at the stage of thinking of dissertation. And one of my serious thoughts about is teacher stress, teacher attrition, and this was very meaningful to attend for me. I had a couple of questions. Have you seen any unexplored spaces, like for specifically BIPOC teachers? Or it feels almost like the teacher has to reach out and take care of their SEL needs. How do we scale this? I know you talked about scalability. I just wanted some kind of insights on that. And where's the biggest need, you think, based on what you have done so far, if people like us who are pursuing more research, where would be, the efforts most impactful? Thank you.
I think what was most helpful in the district where I worked from the start was SEL pilot schools that were developed because they weren't too sure about SEL. But then they saw the outcomes from those particular schools, and they were able to develop a department just dedicated for social-emotional learning. It's called the Office of SEL. And then from that work, they developed SEL standards. And we also had an SEL report card. But they also had health and wellness built into it for the teachers. So twice a year, I could have a masseuse come to my building and give massages to my teachers. They also had pedometers that they gave to the staff to count their walks. So we had it was about that partnership, the partnership piece that Xiomara talked about, those authentic partners that were able to fund us to do that work. But those were some of the ways that we took care of the educators that were doing the work that we needed them to do to make the greatest impact upon our students. So that was how we did it.
Yeah, I'd love to see the idea for our unions, our teachers' unions, to do more in this area and to advocate more for social emotional learning for the teacher, to adopt standards, and include them in the standards for the teaching profession, so that administrators don't have to go through this buy-in process. Instead, it's a part of the standards. This is an important part of the profession. The profession requires that we take care of the health of the professional. There are a lot of professions where the individual is a first responder in many of the same ways that teachers and administrators are, and they have standards for that, and they protect their faculty and their employees around that. I think there's an opportunity for scalability there.
I see a superintendent, or at least a former superintendent in the audience, Greg Franklin. Yeah. Greg, I know you're not on the panel, but is it even feasible that a superintendent might embrace this to take it at a district level? So it's not just a school that's doing this kind of work.
Yeah, there's such a pool
for teachers. The stresses on teachers are incredible. And teachers feel a real sense of ownership of the learning of their kids. And so after the pandemic, we were talking about we all have to give kids space to get back, spend time, just being with each other because, the isolation that happened. And teachers had a real struggle allowing that because they felt the drive to cover the material that their kids would be tested on. And so it's such a complicated issue because I think there's a lot of buy-in by administrators. People recognize the link between a kid's sense of belonging and safety and their ability to learn. But there's such a demand for content that there's just feels like this pressure cooker to get it all done.
Okay. Zoe?
Oh my goodness, this is such an amazing panel, and thank you all for being here and being so engaged. I will just give a plug for upcoming conversations because we're going to have one that focuses specifically on teachers and educators, and that's going to be in the spring. So my question is actually about technology, and I want to specifically go back to Tiffany and Rafael on this one because, as we all know, there are, we're not only the pandemic, but we're faced with how young people are interfacing with their phones, and we were talking in preparation for this panel on just the social isolation that a lot of young people are facing. And I know, Tiffany, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about just like getting in contact with your body again. And then also, Rafael, you talked about like the amazing potential that exists with the cell phone in your pocket. So for all of you, can you add into this mix what technology, social media, phones have to do? And I know there's a lot of movements in schools to take away the phones during the day. So just thoughts on that.
I'll share this. When we started coming back to in-person classes, the students' awareness of just how to share space together, even how to line up, there's definitely a gap. So we had to switch the curriculum up a little bit to kind of go back to basics of how to reconnect to our bodies and how to share space together again. I'll also say this, that I think there's a big possibility in how we can blend hybrid learning in SEL. And I think teaching on Zoom for almost 2 years has taught us there's an accessibility factor that can be utilized when it comes to something like learning on Zoom or hybrid options. So yeah, I think as a dance educator, I'm always trying to be responsive to the moment, this cultural moment right now in terms of what we specifically need. And I think just learning to share space together again is essential. And I have to say, if I can add the social political environment of going on right now and how that shows up in space is also something that we're trying to address when we're learning that in dance, and I'll say in particularly hip hop and street dance practices, your differences are accepted and wanted. They're what create the art. It's the mistake that you go through, and I think focusing on that aspect of it has been an important focus for us right now. Yeah.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this question of the cell phone ban? Is that a good thing or a not so good thing?
I don't know if I want to go there necessarily, but what I will say is that the cell phone traditionally has been a very passive instrument where you're scrolling down or scrolling left, whatever. And they were beginning to really develop this sense of the smartphone as being a very active and engaged tool by which to tell stories and to listen to others by recording them. And so they began to really develop this sense almost like, I feel like a filmmaker, because I haven't used my cell phone in that way, the way you're asking us to explore it. And so I thought that was just a really beautiful way of beginning to pull from the smartphone this capacity to be able to be active and to be nuanced and subtle in terms of the way they captured low angle, high angle, the different types of compositions. They really felt like they were telling a story and they were being intentional about it. And that intentionality, I think, is a very powerful sort of force for them in feeling, yeah, I can do this, I can create stories. Yeah.
More questions either here or online?
Thank you, all of you, and to Professor Smith and Dr. Noguera. This is for you. Then talking about it, retired principal, did my dissertation on cultural self-care for Black women principals to mitigate job-related stress. And the stress that I experienced as a principal, intersectionality, both racism and sexism. What at the university level, though, in the teacher prep programs, in the graduate programs, that you can put in place for those learners that when they do go out into the school site, they'll be ready, and that they can take care of themselves before they go and take care of others.
Yeah.
You want to go first?
Sure.
I'm ready for that.
Sure. That's like my research love, right? What you just mentioned, right? That was a perspective taking that I did when I thought about the research that I did for my dissertation and that I continue to do today. But what I do now as an educator for pre-service teachers is that we have a settle-in for every single class. Whether it's a visualization exercise, whether it's a breathing exercise, that's something that we do. And then we close it with quotes to get them to remember what they need to think about when they see every single child when they walk into that classroom, and then what they need to think about themselves, right? To be gentle with themselves, right? And then I also give them a self-care tip. I'm a trained yoga teacher. I'm also an SEL facilitator. I was trained through Breathe for Change, which is an organization that trains educators to become yoga teachers. And so I use many of their videos just to provide practices to pre-service teachers about things that they can do for themselves, but also things that they can do for their students. I also encourage them just to meditate, whether that be with an app or whether that be before they're starting their day, or whether it be just as they're having their lunch, just to really have their lunch and breathe.
And I'll just say we started a strategic planning process within the Rossier School for our faculty, staff, and students. And we set some goals. One of the goals was wellness within the school. And so now we're trying to figure out, okay, well, how do we support each other in pursuing that goal? I had a couple of our faculty would say they need massages. But I think you're right that we can't just talk about it out there. Yeah. We have to talk about it within, and then because we are preparing educators to go out there into the field, and we know that a lot of times they're encountering hostility and adverse work environments, and we don't want to see them just leave and burn out right away. We want them to be able to persevere, and I think that what Shanta just shared about that self-awareness, self-care is a really critical part. So if we can build that into the experience, I think it would help a lot.
Yes, and make it a universal acceptance
Yes.
thing and not just push it on the individuals to go out and fight.
Absolutely. So we have a faculty member offering to teach yoga. We'll see how many people will come, and another ready to lead in meditation. So, all right, thank you. Any others, online or in person? Oh, two, right here, and then there.
Well, I am a double master's pioneer here at the School of Social Work. And I am a private practice therapist, but I'm also an organizational consultant, and one of my areas has been education. So I've had a contract with LACO up until a couple of years ago for a very long time with their EASE program. If anybody in the room knows what that is, it's Employee Assistance Services for Education. And of course, those are programs. I know that there's the Faculty and Staff Service Center here, but I'm thinking kind of out of the box that schools could have their own programs like this. And when I did teach in the school of social work, and what I saw was a need for a student and faculty service center in the school. And it's about self-care. The social work profession now mandates that social workers put themselves first, learn about self-care, and practice it. So it's even part of licensure that when we do our CEU, we have to take classes in it and have a certain amount of hours in it every 2 years. So I'm just thinking out loud and expressing myself that this is food for thought.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if we had that for teachers, right? And administrators.
And that's what the employee assistance programs, the EASE programs, are for that.
Right.
And I mean, everybody I've ever worked with in education, from maybe the cafeteria people, the bus drivers, the teachers, the administrators, whoever it was, everybody's dedicated for the most part, and everybody cares so much about their job and the children and the schools. And it truly is one of the professions, health and human services, where people put others first for themselves.
Right. And there is funding for lounges, teachers' lounges. So if your school is interested in that, or your district, you can seek funding for that. As part of the RISE initiative, we specifically set aside money to put lounges in our 20 schools and to have the teachers design that lounge themselves. And I have to shout out Fulton County in Georgia, because their lounge was gorgeous. And what they did is they partnered with IKEA. So they had an IKEA consultant come and map out their space and the dimensions, and it was beautiful. I think they called it, or the school in Inglewood Unified called theirs the Mindful Mansion. But these spaces where an administrator, a teacher, classified staff, thank you for mentioning classified staff, because they also deserve the same self-care. They are also on the front lines of the work. But they could go into this space. There was beverages there. There were travel magazines, inspirational quotes, dimmed lighting, water features, just really beautiful, relaxing spaces where you could take a moment, right? Rather than, I remember being a teacher and taking a moment on my messy paper-filled desk, right? It's not the same impact as taking a moment in a space like that.
Noah, you're going to get the last question.
So I actually had a couple questions, but I'll just go for one. So schools already have counselors, and my question is about, because I know that counselors, at least the ones that I used to work with, would often talk about how their caseloads were so huge, and I was just wondering how how an effort to implement SEL would support the work of counselors, or how you think it should support the work of counselors, and how you can, I guess, make sure that those two systems are kind of working together.
Yeah, they're key and critical. My school counselor was on my leadership team, but that was the only time where I sort of demanded of her that I needed her to be there, because she was the key. We had a school psychologist once a week. We had a school nurse twice a week. But my school counselor I had every day. And so having her be a part of the leadership team that helped to create the school improvement plan, that helped us to look at MTSS data that wasn't just about academics, but was also looking at our SEL data. She was just critical with that work. And then in having conversations with the parents, right? So report card night, it wasn't just about the teachers meeting with the parents. It was about my counselor giving messages to the parents about things that they could do during that time to support students to implement SEL.
That's great.
Let me just check and see if Zoe or Corey want to say anything about what's coming next in this series that we're doing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Once again, this has been amazing. Hopefully you all have enjoyed it. Thank you all for your time. Just so everyone knows, this is the first of 3 in the fall, and then we'll do the three in the spring. Wonderful attendance. So next coming up is October 30th. We will do one. We talked today's K-12. Next session will go to the post-secondary ecosystem. So we'll be looking at the challenges and opportunities within higher education, whether it be undergraduate and graduate education. So please, this is great attendance. Let's keep this coming. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today. There will be refreshments in the back. Thank our panelists. And we look forward to seeing you again next time.